My ex-wife dragged me to her family's 4th of July barbecue. And I went because Bryn Carter has never been able to ask me for a favor without me saying yes. Even after the divorce papers, even after 2 years of silence, even when all she wanted was her late father's old toolbox, dropped off before the burgers hit the grill. But I barely had the toolbox out of my car before her Aunt Pam cornered her at the gate, pushing some coworker named Marcus, and Bryn turned, looked me dead in the eyes, and introduced me, her ex-husband, to her entire family as her boyfriend. I'm Caleb Whitfield. 2 years ago, this woman divorced me, and not because she stopped loving me, because I'd been hiding chest pains and a hospital bill in a drawer, running myself gray, disappearing into work until she couldn't recognize the man she married. But here she was on the 4th of July, in that same yellow sundress, lying to her whole family to keep me by her side. Her mother was already crying. My engagement photo was still hanging in their hallway, and every relative at that barbecue was watching us like the divorce had never happened. So why did the woman, who left me for shutting her out, suddenly need everyone to believe I was hers again? Why did my heart, the same heart that nearly gave out and tore us apart, start pounding the second she said the word boyfriend? And how was I supposed to correct her, when the truth was I never wanted her to be lying at all? Let me back up. 3 days before, my phone buzzed at the worst possible time, right in the middle of a doctor's appointment, which, if you'd known me 2 years ago, you'd understand is its own kind of miracle. Me, Caleb Whitfield, sitting in a paper gown willingly, getting my heart checked like a man who'd finally learned to be afraid of the right things. The text was from a number I'd never deleted, never could. Hey, I know this is weird. Dad's old toolbox is still in your garage. Tyler wants it. Could you drop it by the house Friday? It's the barbecue. No pressure. No pressure. From the woman who'd taken half my heart with her when she left. I read it 4 times. The doctor walked back in, looked at my face, and asked if everything was okay. I said yes. I'd gotten good at saying yes when everything wasn't. But here's the thing about that toolbox. It wasn't just a toolbox. It belonged to Walt Carter, Bryn's father, a big, gentle man with sawdust always in his hair, who taught me how to fix a leaking faucet the first weekend I ever spent at their house. Walt died 18 months ago. I found out through a mutual friend, because by then Bryn and I weren't speaking, and I sat in my car in a parking lot and cried for a man who'd treated me like a son right up until I stopped deserving it. I never got to say goodbye to him. So when Bryn asked me to bring his toolbox to the family barbecue, she wasn't just asking for a favor. She was handing me a reason to come home, whether she knew it or not, and I said yes. Of course I said yes. I always said yes. So that's how I ended up standing in the Carter's driveway on the 4th of July, the metal toolbox heavy in my hands, the smell of charcoal smoke curling sweet and thick through the warm air, mixing with cut grass and somebody's sunscreen, the exact smell of every good memory I'd buried for 2 years. The house looked the same. The flag hung a little crooked by the door, the way Walt always hung it. Strings zigzagged across the backyard, even though the sun was still up, because Diane always put them out early. So they're ready when we need them, she used to say, like joy was something you had to prepare for in advance. My chest went tight, not the bad kind, not the kind that used to wake me at 2 in the morning, gripping my arm, telling myself it was nothing. It was stress. It was indigestion. Anything but the truth. This was the other kind of tight. The kind you feel standing somewhere that used to be yours. I almost got back in the car. I swear, my hand was already reaching for the door, because walking in there felt like prying open a door I'd spent 2 years nailing shut. But before I could move, I heard a voice that stopped me cold. Bryn, honey, would you just talk to him? He's right here. Marcus drove 40 minutes. Aunt Pam. I'd know that voice anywhere. Sharp and sweet at the same time, like lemonade with too much sugar to hide the sour. I stepped around the hedge, and that's when I saw her. Bryn, standing at the gate in that yellow sundress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her bare feet in the grass. And next to her, a tall guy in a polo shirt holding a store-bought potato salad, smiling like a man who'd been told this was going to be easy. And Bryn looked trapped, cornered. Her arms were crossed tight over her stomach, that old nervous shield she put up when she didn't know how to say no without hurting somebody. Aunt Pam, I told you, I'm not. He's stable, sweetheart. He shows up. After everything that man put you through, don't you want someone who actually shows up? And that word, shows up, hit me like a fist. Because that was it, wasn't it? That was the whole reason she left. Not because I cheated, not because I stopped loving her, but because I stopped showing up. For her, for myself, for my own failing heart that I kept hiding in a drawer like a bill I didn't want to pay. I must have made a sound or stepped on a twig because Bryn looked up, and our eyes met across that yard for the first time in 2 years. Everything stopped. Her lips parted. The color drained from her face. I watched her glance at Marcus, then at Aunt Pam, then back at me, standing there like a ghost holding her dead father's toolbox. And I saw something break loose behind her eyes. Some decision she didn't have time to think through. Actually, Bryn said, her voice loud and bright and shaking just slightly. Aunt Pam, I want you to meet someone. She walked toward me, fast, bare feet through the grass, and before I could open my mouth, before I could say, I'm just dropping this off, she slipped her arm through mine, turned to face her entire family, and said the words that detonated everything. This is Caleb, my boyfriend. Silence. The kind of silence where you can hear the charcoal popping in the grill. Marcus's smile collapsed. Aunt Pam's mouth fell open. And from the porch, I heard a spatula clatter against the deck, followed by a sound I will never forget as long as I live. Diane Carter, Bryn's mother, bursting into tears. Caleb, she cried, already coming down the steps, arms wide, barbecue tongs still in one hand. Oh my God, Caleb, you came back. And I stood there frozen, this woman's arm locked through mine, her whole family staring, her mother running at me, crying tears of joy over a relationship that didn't exist. And I had maybe 2 seconds to make a choice. Tell the truth and break that crying woman's heart all over again, or lie. Bryn's fingers squeezed my arm, hard, a silent, desperate question I felt all the way up to my shoulder. Please, I looked at her, at those eyes I used to wake up to, at that yellow sundress, and God help me, I went along with it. Hi, Diane, I said, as her arms wrapped around me and the toolbox pressed awkwardly between us. It's good to see you. Over her shoulder, I could see Bryn close her eyes and exhale, like she'd just barely survived something. But here's what neither of us knew yet. Standing there in that smoke and sunlight, faking a love we'd buried 2 years ago. By the end of that night, the lie wouldn't be the lie anymore. And the truth, the real truth, the one about my heart, the one we'd both been running from, was about to come out in front of every single person we loved. The hug ended, but Diane didn't let go of my hand. She held it the way you hold something you were scared you'd lost. Both her palms wrapped around mine, warm and a little damp from the heat, her eyes searching my face like she was checking to make sure I was really there. Let me look at you, she said. Oh, Caleb, you look good. She said it like it surprised her, and it should have. Because the last time Diane Carter saw me, I was gray. Not old gray, sick gray. The color a man turns when he's running on coffee and fear and 4 hours of sleep, when his body is screaming and he's got both hands over its mouth. Thank you, I said quietly. I've been taking better care of myself. I felt Bryn go still beside me, because she knew what those words cost. She knew what they meant. And for half a second, her arm tightened against mine, not the panic grip from before, but something softer, something that almost felt like I noticed too. Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, Diane said, finally letting go to wipe her eyes with the back of her wrist. Now come in, come in. You're letting the flies at the food. Walt's toolbox. Oh, you brought Walt's toolbox. Her voice cracked on his name, and just like that, the air changed. Bryn looked down. I looked at the box in my hands, and for one long aching moment, the three of us stood in the driveway, holding the silence of a man who wasn't there anymore. Tyler's been wanting it, Diane said softly. He's trying to fix up the old shed. Said it didn't feel right buying new tools when his dad's were just sitting somewhere. Sitting in my garage, I thought, for 18 months. next to the boxes I never unpacked from the divorce. I should have brought it sooner, I said. I'm sorry, Diane. About Walt. I never got to. I didn't get to say goodbye to him, and I'm sorry I wasn't there. Diane's chin trembled. She reached up and patted my cheek, the way she used to when I'd compliment her cooking. He loved you, you know, she whispered, right up to the end. He'd ask about you. Even after, she glanced at her daughter. Both of them did things they regret. That's all I'll say. And then she turned and walked back toward the house, leaving those words hanging in the air like smoke. I didn't dare look at Bryn, but I felt her looking at me. You okay? She asked. Just for me. No, I said honestly. Are you? She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Not even a little. For a second, standing there, it was just us again. Two people who'd known every soft and broken part of each other. And then a screen door slammed, and reality came roaring back in the shape of a tall man in a polo shirt holding a potato salad he no longer had any reason to hold. So, Marcus said, his voice tight. Boyfriend, huh? Marcus, Bryn started. No, it's fine. It's totally fine. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Pam said you were single. My mistake. She is single, I almost said. The truth was right there, sitting on my tongue. One sentence and the whole thing would unravel. We're divorced, she panicked. I'm just here for the toolbox. But then I saw Bryn's face, the exhaustion in it, the year of being pushed and set up and pitied. And I thought about Diane crying in the driveway, and I heard myself say something else entirely. Yeah, I said, sliding my free arm around Bryn's shoulders like it was the most natural thing in the world. Boyfriend, sorry you drove all that way, man. Marcus's jaw flexed. He set the potato salad down on the porch railing a little too hard. Right, he said. Well, happy 4th. And he walked off toward his car, and I felt Bryn sag against me in relief, her forehead nearly touching my shoulder. And for one dangerous second, I forgot we were pretending. Because she fit there. She always had. You didn't have to do that, she murmured. I know. He's going to tell everyone at work. Then it's a good thing I don't work with you, I said, and she laughed. A real one. The kind I hadn't heard in 2 years, the kind that used to be the best sound in my entire world. It slipped out of her before she could stop it, and she pressed her hand to her mouth like she was embarrassed, like joy was something she wasn't allowed to have around me anymore. Then Aunt Pam descended. Well, I have never, she said, marching up with her hands on her hips. Bryn Marie Carter, you let me set up that whole thing with Marcus, and you've had a boyfriend this whole time? And not just any boyfriend, Caleb. Aunt Pam, after the divorce, after everything? When did this happen? And there it was, the question, the one that could break the whole lie wide open. I felt Bryn freeze. I felt the panic rising off her like heat off the grill. She opened her mouth and nothing came out, and I watched 20 years of being honest war with one terrified moment of not knowing what to say. So I caught it for her. A few months ago, I said smoothly. We ran into each other, got coffee, started talking again. I looked down at Bryn, and I let myself say the part that wasn't a lie at all. Turns out some things don't really go away, no matter how hard you try. Bryn looked up at me, and something passed between us that neither of us had planned. Something true buried inside something fake. Her eyes went glassy. She didn't blink. That's right, she said softly, still looking at me. Some things don't go away. Aunt Pam pressed both hands to her chest. Oh, she breathed. Oh, now that's okay, I forgive you. But you should have told me. She swatted Bryn's arm and bustled off toward the food table, already turning to tell 3 other relatives the news. And just like that, it spread. I watched it move across the backyard like a wave. Cousins turning, aunts whispering, a great uncle in a lawn chair giving me a thumbs up. Caleb's back. Bryn and Caleb, they worked it out. 2 years of grief and gossip, and poor Bryn erased in 30 seconds by a lie I'd agreed to without thinking. This is bad, Bryn whispered, smiling at her family through gritted teeth. This is so bad. They're all so happy. How long do we have to keep this up? Just till the fireworks, she said. People leave after the fireworks. Then I'll figure out how to walk it back. Slowly, over a few weeks, so it doesn't crush my mom. A few weeks, I repeated. Can you just Be my boyfriend for 3 hours, please? She looked up at me, and there was something underneath the panic now, something raw. I know it's insane. I know I have no right to ask, but my mom hasn't smiled like that since Dad. Her voice broke. Since Dad. And what was I supposed to say to that? 3 hours, she exhaled. Thank you, Caleb. I mean it. Thank you. On one condition. She narrowed her eyes. What? I nodded toward the grill, where smoke was curling up and a teenage cousin was burning hamburgers with the focused intensity of someone who had no idea what they were doing. Somebody's got to save those burgers, I said. And it's not going to be me. My heart can't take it. It was a joke, a stupid, throwaway joke. But the second it left my mouth, Bryn's smile faltered. Because my heart can't take it used to be something we said lightly, back before it was real. Back before the chest pains, back before the hospital, back before that word, heart, became the thing that ended us. She looked at me, the laughter gone now. Caleb, she said carefully, your doctor's appointment. The one you mentioned in the driveway, the taking better care of myself. She swallowed. Is your heart okay? Actually okay? And there it was, the real question, the one underneath all the others. The one she'd probably been carrying for 2 years and never been allowed to ask. The smoke drifted between us. Somewhere a kid laughed. The string lights swayed. And I realized I had a choice to make all over again. Tell her the easy lie, I'm fine. The same lie that destroyed us once already. Or finally, tell her the truth. I didn't lie. That was the first miracle of the night. Bigger than the toolbox, bigger than the fake boyfriend thing. I looked Bryn Carter in the eyes. In her father's backyard, with smoke in the air and her whole family laughing behind us, and I told her the truth. It's not okay yet, I said, but it's getting there, and this time I'm not hiding it. She went very still. What does that mean, she said. Not a question. A held breath. It means after you left, I kept ignoring it. For months. I made myself keep going, even though every word felt like pulling a splinter out deep. The chest stuff, the goodness. I told myself I was just sad, just divorced, just tired. I looked at the grass. Then one night last spring, I woke up at 3 a.m, and I couldn't feel my left arm, and I drove myself to the ER, and I sat in that parking lot for 10 minutes too scared to go in. Bryn's hand came up to her mouth. And then I thought about you, I said. I thought, if I die in this parking lot, the last thing Bryn will ever know about me is that I couldn't even tell her I was sick, that I let her think I just stopped loving her, that I let her walk away believing it was her. My voice cracked. So I went in. Caleb. His name barely made it out of her. It was a warning, not the real thing. Not yet, but the doctor sat me down and said, Mr. Whitfield, your body has been sending you letters for 2 years, and you've been throwing them all in a drawer. I laughed, but it wasn't really a laugh. Which, you know. He didn't know how right he was, because she knew about the drawer. She was the one who found the first hospital bill in it, 8 months before she left. Folded up, hidden, paid in secret. The proof that I'd had chest pains in a parking garage and gone to urgent care alone, and told her nothing. That drawer ended our marriage. Not because I was sick. Because I'd rather she think I was fine than let her be scared with me. Because somewhere along the way I decided that love meant carrying everything alone, and I'd carried it right out the door. That's why I started going to the doctor, I said. Real cardiologist, every 3 months. And a therapist, to figure out why a grown man would rather have a heart attack in a parking lot than make one phone call. The tears were running down her face now. She wasn't wiping them. You're seeing a therapist, she whispered. 18 months. You quit the second job? Day after the ER. You sleep? Most nights. 8 hours. It's stupid how proud I am of that. And Bryn Carter, my ex-wife, who divorced me for disappearing, pressed both hands over her face and started crying so hard her shoulders shook. Right there in front of the potato salad. And I didn't know whether to hold her or step back, so I just stood there with my hands useless at my sides. I'm sorry, she said through her fingers. I'm sorry I can't. You have no idea. I read this article a few months ago about men your age, heart stuff, stress, and I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot and I sobbed, Caleb, because I thought I thought you were out there somewhere, alone, hiding it, having pains in the dark, and not calling anyone, and I would never even know. And I hated that I still cared that much. I was so angry that I still cared. I felt my whole chest fold in on itself. You cared, I said. I never stopped. She dropped her hands. Her face was wet and open and furious and soft all at once. That was the worst part. I left because I couldn't watch you kill yourself in slow motion and pretend I didn't see it. Leaving wasn't me not loving you. Leaving was the only way I knew how to stop watching. And there it was. 2 years of silence, and the truth was so simple, it knocked the wind out of me. She didn't leave because she stopped loving me. She left because she loved me and couldn't save me. Those are different things. Nobody tells you they're different things until it's too late. Hey, I reached out, slowly, carefully, and I wiped a tear off her cheek with my thumb the way I used to. She let me. I'm still here. I drove myself in. I went through the door. I'm doing the work. I'm not the guy who hid the drawer anymore. I know, she breathed. I can see it. That's what's killing me. You came back healthy, and I have to introduce you as a fake boyfriend. And then, because grief and joy live in the same house, she laughed, wet and broken and real. And I laughed too. And for a second, the lie and the truth got so tangled up that neither of us could tell where one ended and the other began. Bryn, Caleb, burgers are up, Tyler hollered from the grill. Come eat before Uncle Ray takes 'em all. She wiped her face fast, practiced, the way you do when you've cried in a lot of parking lots. Okay, she breathed. Okay, 3 hours. We can do this, just act normal. I don't know how to act normal around you, I said. I never did. She shot me a look, half warning, half something else, and grabbed my hand. And that's how the rest of the afternoon went. Hand in hand through a backyard full of people who loved us, eating burgers off paper plates, while my dead father-in-law's toolbox sat on the porch and his wife beamed at us like a prayer had been answered. Tyler hugged me hard and said, Man, it's good to have you back, I mean it. Uncle Ray made me arm wrestle him and let me win. A flock of little cousins I'd never met climbed on me like I was playground equipment. And every single time someone said, We're so glad you two worked it out, Bryn squeezed my hand a little tighter, and I squeezed her back, and the lie got warmer and heavier and harder to remember was a lie at all. Then it got dangerous, because around sunset, Diane pulled me aside by the cooler, away from everyone, and took both my hands again. Her eyes were serious now. Caleb, she said quietly, can an old woman say something to you? Always. When you two split up, I cried for a month. She held up a hand before I could speak. Not because I blamed you. Because I watched my daughter walk around like half a person. And I watched her tell everyone she was fine. Diane's eyes filled. And I knew that fine. I know that fine, Caleb. I did fine for the whole year after Walt's heart gave out, and I didn't go to a single doctor myself because I didn't want to know. My stomach dropped. Diane, I'm telling you this, she said, gripping my hands harder, because you came back here looking alive again. And my daughter is looking at you like she did the day you married her. And I don't know what happened between you two these last few months. But whatever it is, don't you dare hide from each other again. Either of you. You hear me? Life is too short and hearts are too fragile, and I have buried enough people who thought they had time. I couldn't breathe because she thought we were really back together. And she was begging us not to repeat the exact mistake that had actually torn us apart. The hiding, the fine, the drawer. She had no idea how close to the bone she was cutting. I hear you, I managed. Good. She patted my cheek. Now go find her. The fireworks are about to start. And as she walked away, I stood there in the blue dusk, the first firework whistling up over the lake, and I realized something that turned my whole chest to ice. I didn't want this to end at the fireworks. I didn't want to walk it back over a few weeks. I didn't want to be a lie that faded out. I wanted the real thing, the thing I'd thrown away. And I had maybe 1 hour left to decide whether to risk telling her that or let her slip through my fingers a second time, politely, slowly, forever. The first firework burst gold across the sky, and down by the fire pit, alone, lit up in flickering orange, Bryn Carter was waiting for me. And I knew, walking toward her, that Whatever I said in the next 5 minutes was going to either give me my whole life back or take it away for good. The walk to the fire pit was the longest walk of my life. It was maybe 40 feet. 40 feet of grass going soft and blue in the dark, the string lights glowing on now, the way Diane always promised they would be, ready when we need them. Behind me, the whole family had their faces turned up to the sky, oohing at the fireworks. Ahead of me, lit in flickering orange, sat the only woman I'd ever loved, holding 2 beers, waiting. She handed me one without looking up. "They're going to find out, you know," she said quietly. "Eventually, that this isn't real." I sat down on the log beside her. The fire popped. A red firework opened over the lake and painted both our faces the color of the sundress she was wearing. "What if it was?" I said. She went still. "What if it was real?" I said again, and my heart was slamming so hard I could feel it in my throat, the same heart that nearly killed me, the same heart that brought me back to this exact backyard. Not the part where we lied to Pam, the other part, the part where I said some things don't go away no matter how hard you try. "Caleb, I meant that one. Bryn, that wasn't acting." She set her beer down in the grass. Her hands were shaking. "You don't get to do this," she whispered. "You don't get to show up after 2 years, looking healthy and whole and better, and sit by my dad's fire pit and say things like that. It's not fair. I know it's not. I built a whole life around being okay without you." A tear slipped down, catching the firelight. "Do you have any idea how long that took? How many nights? I finally got to the point where I could hear your name and not fall apart. And then you walk into my mom's barbecue carrying my dead father's toolbox, and I introduce you as my boyfriend before my brain can even." "Why?" I said softly. She stopped. "Why'd you say it, Bryn? Pam's been pushing guys at you for a year. You could have said you weren't interested. You could have said anything. But the second you saw me, you grabbed my arm and called me yours." I leaned in. "Why?" The fireworks cracked overhead. Gold, then green, then a long whistling silence. "Because I panicked," she said. "Try again." "Because Marcus was." "Bryn." I waited until she looked at me. "Try again." And her face crumpled, and the truth came out of her like it had been clawing at the door for 2 years. "Because for 1 second I wanted it to be true," she said, the words breaking apart. "Because you stood there, with Dad's toolbox, looking like the man I married, instead of the ghost I left. And something in me just reached for you, before I could stop it. Like no time had passed at all." She pressed her hand to her chest. "Like my body remembered being happy before my brain could remind it why we can't." I couldn't speak. "And I hate it," she went on, crying now. "I hate that I still reach for you. I hate that I read articles about your heart. I hate that I kept your number. I hate that when you texted me about the toolbox, I changed my shirt 3 times before you got here. Like an idiot, like a teenager, for a man I divorced. You changed your shirt?" "Don't you dare smile right now, Caleb Whitfield." But I was smiling. I couldn't help it, because she'd just handed me back a piece of my own heart I thought I'd lost forever. "I never stopped loving you," I said. The words landed in the firelight and just sat there, glowing. "I want to be really clear," I said. "Because the last time I wasn't clear with you, I lost everything. So here it is. No drawer, no hiding, no fine. I love you. I never stopped. I spent 2 years, and a near-death scare, and 18 months of therapy, learning how to be the man you needed. And the whole time I told myself it was for me, for my health, so I wouldn't die alone." My voice broke. "But it was for you, Bryn. It was always for you. I wanted to get better so that if I ever got the chance to stand in front of you again, I'd be someone worth standing in front of." She was sobbing now, the good kind and the terrible kind at once. "And then you texted me about a toolbox," I said, "and gave me a reason to come home. And I'm not going to pretend anymore. Not even to save your mom's feelings. I don't want 3 hours. I don't want to fade out over a few weeks. I want the real thing. I want to try again." With my whole fixed-up, terrified heart. For a long moment she didn't say anything. The fire crackled, a firework bloomed and faded, and I watched 2 years of pain and one terrifying flicker of hope fight it out across her face. Then she said the thing that nearly broke me. "How do I know you won't disappear again?" There it was, the real wound. Not whether I loved her, whether I'd stay. You don't, I said. She blinked. You don't know, I said. I can't prove it with a speech. The old me would have promised you the world right now, big and shiny, and meant it, and then gone right back to hiding the second things got hard. I reached into my pocket. So I'm not going to give you a promise. I'm going to give you the truth instead. And I pulled out the folded paper I'd been carrying since the doctor's office 3 days ago. I'd brought it to show no one. I'd brought it because I'd gotten into the habit of carrying my own truth around with me now, instead of hiding it in a drawer. Unfolded it in the firelight. My latest cardiology results. My numbers. My next appointment date. My therapist's name and the words follow up in plain print. This is me, I said, my hand trembling as I held it out to her. All of it. The bad numbers getting better. The appointments I actually go to. The proof that I let people see the scary stuff now. I swallowed hard. I'm handing you the drawer, Bryn. The whole drawer. Open. That's the only promise I've got. Not that I'll never be scared again. That I'll never hide it from you again. She took the paper. She held it in both hands, and she read it, and the firelight shook on the page because her hands were shaking. And when she got to the bottom, to the appointment dates, to the proof that I was choosing to stay alive on purpose, she pressed it to her chest and folded forward and cried like something 2 years deep was finally coming loose. You kept your appointment for next month, she whispered. I'm planning on being around next month, I said. I'm planning on being around a long time. And then she looked up at me, her face wet and wrecked and more beautiful than the day I married her. And she said the 4 words I will carry in my chest until the day that heart of mine finally does give out, decades from now, with her hopefully holding my hand. Then ask me again. I didn't understand. Ask you. Properly. She wiped her eyes, and a broken laugh slipped out. Not because my mom's watching. Not to fool Aunt Pam. Not as a boyfriend. She took a shaking breath. Ask me for real, Caleb. The way you should have fought for me before you let me walk out that door. And the whole world went quiet. The fireworks stopped. Or maybe I just stopped hearing them. There was only the fire and the string lights, and her father's toolbox up on the porch, and her mother somewhere behind us, who'd buried a husband and begged us not to waste our time, and this woman in a yellow sundress asking me to be brave in the one way I'd never been brave before. So I got down in the grass, on one knee. No ring. I didn't have a ring. I'd come to drop off a toolbox. So I took her hand in both of mine the way her mother had held mine all evening, like something I'd been terrified I'd lost. Bryn Carter, I said, my voice steady for the first time in 2 years. I'm not the man who hid from you. Not anymore. I'm a man who goes to the doctor, who sleeps, who says the scary thing out loud, who carries his own heart around in his pocket instead of locking it in a drawer. A tear ran down my face, and I let it. I lost you once because I couldn't show up. Let me spend the rest of my fixed-up life showing up, every day, every appointment, every hard conversation. Will you let me try again? Behind us, I dimly heard a gasp, then another. The family had turned around, but I only saw her. And Bryn Carter, my ex-wife, my fake girlfriend, my whole entire heart, slid off that log into the grass in front of me, took my face in both her hands, and kissed me like 2 years of silence had just shattered into light. The backyard erupted. I mean erupted. Diane screaming. Tyler whooping. Aunt Pam shrieking. I knew it, even though she had known nothing. Little cousins cheering without understanding why. A grand finale of fireworks, going off over the lake at the exact moment her lips found mine, gold and red raining down over a family that had grieved us, and now got to watch us come back to life. She pulled back just enough to rest her forehead against mine. Yes, she whispered, just for me. Yes, but we do it different this time. No drawers. No fine. You tell me everything. Everything, I promised. I swear it on my next appointment. She laughed and cried at the same time. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said, you absolute disaster. And out of the corner of my eye, up on the porch, I saw Diane Carter with both hands pressed over her mouth, tears streaming down her face, and beside her, leaning against the rail, was Walt's old toolbox, catching the last of the firelight, like the old man himself had found a way to be there for it after all. But here's the thing about happy endings. They're not the end. Because 3 weeks later, sitting in a waiting room I never thought I'd be sitting in, holding the hand of the woman I'd just gotten back, something happened that neither of us saw coming. Something that would test every single promise I'd made by that fire. And it would prove, once and for all, whether the new Caleb Whitfield was real. 3 weeks of happiness. That's what we got first. And I need you to know about it, because of what came after. 3 weeks of Bryn leaving a toothbrush at my place. 3 weeks of her laughing on my couch with her bare feet in my lap. 3 weeks of me cooking actual food. Real vegetables, the stuff my cardiologist circled on a sheet, while she sat on the counter stealing bites and telling me I was a terrible cook, which I was, but she ate it anyway. 3 weeks of telling each other everything. No drawers, no fine. We'd even started talking about a real ring. And then, on a Tuesday morning, it happened. But here's the twist nobody saw coming, and I didn't see it coming either, even though I should have. Even though I, of all people, should have known to watch for it. It wasn't my heart. It was hers. We were making breakfast. She was telling me a story about Tyler and the shed, laughing, reaching for the coffee. And then she stopped. Just stopped. Mid-sentence. Her hand went to her chest, and she got this confused look on her face, like the floor had tilted. "Caleb," she said, "I feel really weird." "Weird how?" I was already moving. "My chest, it's tight. And my arm feels," she frowned, rubbing her left arm. "It's probably nothing. I think I just slept on it wrong. I'm fine, I just need to sit." And the whole world stopped, because I had heard those exact words before. "It's probably nothing. I'm fine. I just need to sit," I had said them. In a parking garage. In a parking lot at 3 in the morning. I had said them for 2 years until they nearly killed me and definitely killed my marriage. And now the woman I loved was saying them to me. Going pale in my kitchen, reaching for a chair instead of for help. And in that one frozen second, I understood something that turned my blood to ice. The whole time, I'd been so sure the lessons was about me. My heart, my drawer, my second chance to stay alive for her. But life doesn't care about your tidy little lessons. Sometimes the test isn't whether you'll take care of yourself. Sometimes the test is whether you'll refuse to let the person you love make the same mistake you almost died from. "No," I said. Bryn blinked. "Know what, Caleb, I'm fine. You're not fine." I crossed the kitchen and took her hand, calm, steady, the steadiest I have ever been in my life. "You don't get to say fine. Not to me. I wrote the book on fine, Bryn, and it almost put me in the ground. We're going to the hospital. Right now. It's probably just nothing, and we'll feel stupid, and I will happily feel stupid with you in a waiting room." I was already grabbing my keys. "But we are not sitting down. We are not waiting to see if it passes. We are not hiding this in a drawer. Not you. Not ever. Get in the car." And the woman who left me because I wouldn't take my own heart seriously looked at me. Really looked at me. And I watched her understand exactly what was happening. That the man she'd left was the man now refusing to let her do the thing she left him for doing. She didn't argue. That's how I knew it was bad. She just whispered, "Okay," and let me walk her to the car, and I drove faster than I've ever driven, talking to her the whole way, keeping her awake, keeping her with me, while she pressed her hand to her chest and tried to smile and said, "You're being dramatic." And I said, "Yeah, well, I learned from the best. Me." And she laughed. And the laugh turned into a wince, and I pressed the gas harder. The next part is a blur. The ER doors, the wheelchair, a nurse asking questions. Bryn's hand slipping out of mine as they took her back, and her voice, small, scared, nothing like the woman who'd held my whole heart together by a fire pit 3 weeks before. Calling, "Caleb, don't leave." "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "You hear me? I am not going anywhere. I'll be right here. I'm not hiding. I'm not disappearing. I'm right here, Bryn." And then the doors swung shut, and I was alone in a waiting room. The same kind of waiting room I'd sat in alone, for myself, a year before. Except this time I wasn't the one who'd hidden it until the last second. This time someone had caught it early. This time someone had said, "No, we go now." I called Diane. She was there in 20 minutes, Tyler behind her, the whole family rolling in like a tide. Diane grabbed my hands the way she always did and said, "What happened? What happened?" And I told her, and her face went white, and she said the thing that nearly dropped me to the floor. "That's how Walt started," she whispered. "Exactly how Walt started. And Walt said he was fine. Walt sat down. Walt waited." Her voice shattered. "And Walt didn't make it to the hospital." And that's when I understood the full weight of what had almost happened. Bryn had her father's heart. The same warning her father ignored. The same fine. The same "I'll just sit down." The same instinct that killed the gentlest man I ever knew. And the only reason she was behind those doors getting help instead of slipping away on a kitchen floor was because the man who used to hide everything had finally learned not to. We waited 2 hours. 2 hours of Diane praying, of Tyler pacing, of me staring at a set of doors, refusing to make deals with God, because I'd already made the only deal that mattered. I'll never let her hide. I'll never let her wait. I'll never let her become me. And I'd kept it. For once in my life, I'd kept it in time. Then a doctor came out. "Family of Bryn Carter?" We stood up so fast the chairs scraped. "She's stable," the doctor said, and the whole room exhaled at once. "She had what we call an early cardiac event. A warning. The good news, and I want to be very clear about this, is that you got her here fast. If you'd waited even another hour, if she'd sat down to see if it passed the way these patients almost always do," he shook his head, "this would be a very different conversation. Whoever made the call to come in immediately." He looked around at us. "That person saved her life." Nobody said anything. And then Diane Carter turned, with tears pouring down her face, and pointed one shaking finger at me. "He did," she said. "He did." I had to sit back down. My legs just gave out. Because do you understand? Do you understand what that means? The thing that destroyed my marriage. The hiding, the fine, the drawer, the parking lots, the warnings I threw away. The thing I almost died from and nearly lost everything over. That exact thing is what taught me how to save her. If I'd never gotten sick, I'd never have learned the lesson. If I'd never learned the lesson, I'd never have grabbed her keys. If I'd never grabbed her keys, she'd have sat down on that kitchen floor like her father did, and waited, and been fine, right up until she wasn't. My broken heart saved her whole one. They let me back to see her an hour later. She was small in the big white bed, an IV in her arm, monitors beeping steady and strong beside her. And when she saw me, she started to cry, and she reached out her hand, and I crossed that room and took it and pressed it to my face. "You didn't let me say fine," she whispered. "Never again," I said. "Not you, not me, not us." Her voice broke. "He said another hour. Caleb, he said another hour. I know. We saved you," I said. "You came in. You let me drive. You didn't sit down." I kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her hands. "We did it different this time, just like you said by the fire. No drawers, no fine. We tell each other everything, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary." She laughed through her tears. "Worst possible way to test the new system. Best possible proof that it works." And then she looked up at me, and the monitors beeped steady between us. Two hearts that had both nearly stopped finding their way back to the same rhythm, and she said, "To marry me. For real, with a ring. As soon as I'm out of this bed." "I was supposed to ask you," I said. "You're too slow," she whispered, smiling. "Somebody in this relationship has to act before it's too late." And I laughed, and I cried, and I said yes. Me, this time, yes, in a hospital room that should have been the saddest place in the world, but was, somehow, the place where our whole life finally began. We got married that fall. In the Carter's backyard. Same string lights, hung early, ready for when we needed them. Diane walked Bryn down the aisle in her father's place, and on the chair where Walt would have sat, we set his old toolbox, polished up, catching the afternoon light. The toolbox that started everything, that gave a broken man a reason to come home. And every year now, on our anniversary, we don't just celebrate the wedding. We celebrate a Tuesday morning, a set of car keys, a refusal to sit down. Bryn's healthy now. So am I. We both go to every appointment. We both say the scary thing out loud. And taped to our refrigerator, where the drawer used to win, There's a single index card in her handwriting that says, "Don't wait. Don't hide. Don't ever say, 'I'm fine.' The people who love you would rather drive you to the hospital 100 times for nothing than lose you once for pretending." That's the whole story. The ex-wife who dragged me to a barbecue. The lie that became the truth. The heart that broke us and then, in the end, saved us both. Because here's what I learned, and what I'd give anything for you to hear. Your body is writing you letters. The tightness, the tiredness, the thing you keep telling yourself is nothing. Don't throw them in a drawer. Don't sit down to see if it passes. Don't ever, ever say you're fine when you're not. Because there is someone out there who loves you, who would cross any kitchen, grab any keys, drive any speed, just to keep you in this world one more day. Don't make them find out too late. So let me ask you something before you go. Is there a letter your body has been writing you? A sign you've been ignoring? A fine you've been telling everyone that you already know, deep down, you need to stop hiding? And who is the person in your life who would drive you to that hospital without a second thought, that you've maybe been too afraid or too proud to let in? Tell me in the comments. Say their name. And then please, go make the appointment. Send the text. Don't wait for a barbecue or a fire pit or a Tuesday morning that comes too late, because somebody is counting on your heart to keep beating. Don't make them find out from a bill in a drawer.